Hi everyone, welcome to Scary Fan Party. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Jim.
And this is where we talk about everything Scary Pool Party related. Hi everybody, welcome to the Scary Fan Party where we talk about everything Scary Pool Party related. My name is Sarah. I am super excited to have my co-host and our guest today. First I'm going to introduce Jim. Jim, are you there? How are you doing?
I'm here, Sarah. How you doing? Good morning.
Good morning. We are both super excited to welcome our next guest. I know the fans are going to be super excited about this interview. Everybody loves his music and it's actually very requested. It was the first time we had fan questions for somebody on our show, so that was different. But he just won the Best Urban Hip Hop Artist in England. I'm not sure what the name of the award is, but I'm sure he can clarify that for me. It's exciting either way. So everybody, please welcome Chris Bird to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi,
Welcome, Chris. Hey, thanks for having me. How's everyone doing?
I'm great. Besides it's cloudy and kind of weird here, it's good.
I'm good. I've got about 6 cups of coffee. Oh, wow. Conversation could go longer than expected.
Okay, so I just wanted to say congrats on your award. Like, that must be super exciting for you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, it was amazing to get the award. The award wasn't actually in England, though. It was in Malta, where I'm from. So I flew down where I am at the moment to get the award, basically. But it was basically like the biggest award in the country.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Is this the first time you were nominated?
It's actually the first time they did the whole award, so it's the first event of theirs. But it is my first award, actually. It felt amazing, though. Being on stage, getting the recognition for all the hard work that you put into your craft. So yeah, it was amazing. Super great. Hey, Chris, can you tell us the official name of that award? So basically, there's a franchise called Lovin', and then the country that they're in. So Lovin' Malta, Lovin' France, and all that kind of stuff. So the award was Lovin' Music Awards. So it was the one that's based in Malta.
Well, it's super cool that you won your first award like 2 days or 3 days before the podcast. I was like, wow, that's amazing. I know that a lot of the fans on the groups went and voted. I think Katie posted an announcement about it, and so we all went and voted for you. So I'm super happy that you won.
I really appreciate that. Thanks, and I'd like to thank everyone that took their time to put in a vote. It means the world to me.
I was listening to your music last night at about midnight. I know Jim listened to a lot of your music over the last couple of days too. I wasn't really familiar with your music other than thinking of you. You have quite the collection of music. I was very astounded by the sheer volume of songs that you had. I wanted to ask, how did you get started in music, in the music industry? What was the inspiration or the song that you just said, you know, I want to be an artist. I want to do music for the rest of my life.
So my first introduction to music was actually DJing. It was a close friend of mine at the time used to DJ at this very small local bar that's like about a 5-minute walk from my house. I used to just go and just hang out with him, and then just before we used to open the doors, I used to spend 20 minutes, half an hour, sometimes an hour just playing and getting really in tune with the whole scene, you know, just getting a feel of it. I was maybe like 14 or 15 years old. And then I slowly started moving into writing my own lyrics. And when I started DJing, it was more like techno and house, because that's the scene where I'm from. But I never really connected with it that much. So I kind of moved more into hip-hop and started writing my own lyrics. And as time moved on, I started making my own beats, writing my own music. And it's evolved into what it is today. So where I write my own music, produce, mix, master, and everything myself. But it was like a whole evolution, starting from DJing, moving into learning each craft individually, and once I'm happy with that, I move on to the next thing.
So did you have like inspirations? Do you have inspirations for what you do now? Any musical inspirations that you can talk about? Like, who are the artists that really inspire you to create the way that you do?
So inspiration, music-wise, it started originally with Nirvana. That was the first band that really made me feel like, wow, you know, I really want to give that connection that I had with them to someone else. That was mainly because my brother was into like rock music. So my parents separated at a very young age. So the person I looked up to the most was my brother at the time. And he used to listen to like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and all those kind of bands. So that's the first introduction. That's what really inspired me to say, that connection, I want to give it to someone else, and I want to inspire the people the way they inspired me. And as time moved on, I even went into like heavy metal and all that kind of stuff, and then reaching out, taking what I liked from that, and then moving into hip hop. Everyone from like Jay-Z, Eminem, to like current artists like J. Cole, Kendrick, all these kind of artists. But rock has always been, there's always been like an underlining inspiration from rock music. So I'd say it's a blend between rock and hip hop. And what inspires my actual lyrics and what I talk about, it's all my life, you know, stuff that I go through, relationship, anything that I've seen with my own eyes or that happened to people around me. So that's where the inspiration basically comes from.
That's cool. I know Jim likes Nirvana, don't you, Jim?
Yeah, I like Nirvana, but Chris, as you were talking, I was thinking of, I don't know if you are familiar with Strange Famous Records, Sage Francis.
Not really.
Sage Francis, he's out of the Northeast. He came out of Providence, Rhode Island, that was it. But his testimony was that he was into heavy metal and then went into hip-hop afterwards. But B. Dolan, Scroobius Pip, you may recognize some of those names. Anyway, they come out of Strange Famous Record. And your story just reminded me of him, where he started there and kind of moved into hip-hop.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Eminem. I think Eminem is like brilliant. He's such an amazing just creator, right? Like I would say a rapper, but I think he is more than a rapper at this point. But that's super interesting. And do you have do you have a process for creating? Do you lock yourself in your room for days, or do you just like draw inspiration from around you and just kind of write as you go?
So the process has always been different throughout the years. But yeah, essentially it's Monday to Sunday, I'm pretty much locked in creating. But obviously, like I said, since my inspiration comes from stuff I've lived through, experiences, relationships and all that kind of stuff, being locked in a room is fine. But after a time, you need to live a little because like you've already used up all that inspiration. So I kind of like when I don't like to use the word, but the writer's block kind of thing, I just go and live a bit, you know, I just go out a bit with my friends and all that kind of stuff and try to live life. So the process has always changed throughout the years, but there's always those elements where I do a few months where I'm just locked in the studio creating. Sometimes I don't even write songs. Sometimes like I've actually moved into fashion now. So I try to like channel my emotions in different outlets, but yeah, it's mainly locked in a room, finding sounds, finding what I want to talk about, and then releasing it onto pen and paper, basically.
That's cool. Do you have any new music coming out?
I've got so much music that I need to release, but I'm super critical. Like I look at my music and I need to perfect every little detail, which I've slowly started to release that kind of control. But yeah, I've got loads of songs coming out. I've actually got one that I want to release in the next coming week, actually.
Oh, that's amazing. What's it called? So we can look for it.
At the moment, it doesn't have a name. Just literally, at the moment, it's called Fire because it's a word I use in the chorus, but I don't think that's going to be the name. So at the moment, it's untitled.
Well, you'll have to let me know so I can play it on the show. I'm happy to play your music. I think that our fans there's a lot of crossover. They really love you, so I'm sure that they would be happy for that.
Absolutely, I'll definitely get some clean versions sent over to you, for sure.
Awesome. That would be great. And then I don't have to feel like I'm messing with your artistic integrity trying to clean it up, because I do feel weird about doing it. I was doing God, America, and Guns by Alejandro, and I just couldn't even play it because I felt like it was just changing the song too much. So
yeah,
it's a struggle.
Now, I was just going to say, from my point of view, if you're just removing some songs, get exposure at the end of the day. So if you ever wanted to play a song and you don't have the clean version, just go ahead and bleep out the words that's necessary.
Well, thank you for that. That makes me feel better, actually. Are you doing an album, or you just release music as you have it and go into the studio?
Last year, I wanted to actually put together an album and release it, but as time went on, I realized releasing a body of work could fall on like deaf ears unless you have like a big enough platform, because a lot of people, the attention span nowadays is so short where, you know, by the fourth or fifth song, people don't really want to carry on listening. So I said, I'd rather just put out singles for now and just let them breathe and get the full attention that it deserves. And then as the following grows and the interest grows, and then start thinking about an album. I do have actually a couple of albums that are pretty much done, but I'd rather release them as singles for now, and then I have my debut album kind of like sitting in a vault ready to come out when it's ready, and I feel the time is right. But I don't feel the platform is ready, so at the moment it's just singles.
So it's a really interesting point, because I know that there are artists out there that are now just releasing music or singles as they go, as opposed to doing albums or tours. And I think that largely has to do with how things have changed in the music industry, because you have Spotify now, you have SoundCloud, you have all these different platforms to release music. And I do think you're right. I think people's attention span is very short. So it's an interesting kind of discussion about whether albums are actually applicable anymore. When you have especially crossing the genres, right, between hip-hop and heavy metal, like, it becomes less relevant to have to put an album together that sounds, synchronous. Does that make sense, Jim?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I was just going to ask him, Chris, what direction do you see the industry going as far as collecting together a full album versus just kind of spoon-feeding people singles? Like, isn't Katy Perry doing that right now, kind of not touring, just putting out singles?
That is, so she made an announcement right after Idol last year that she was no longer doing albums, that she was just going to release music as it came to her. And I think that might be like a more organic process for artists. I mean, I'm not a music person by any stretch of the imagination, and maybe Chris can speak more to that. But it seems to me like it's more organic to just do a song that you're feeling, right? That you wrote, that you feel, rather than having to put together an entire album. Do you have any thoughts on that, Chris? Like, as an industry perspective?
Yeah, so I definitely think singles are a strong way to get your music heard, like I said, with its full attention. However, I don't think albums will ever be completely disregarded, because, for example, for me, if I follow an artist, I get more excited when they put out an album rather than when they put out a single, because it's a full body of work. I just think you need to know your lane and know exactly how you want to strategically put out music. In the beginning, I do think it's very important to put out music as singles because of the attention span. However, I don't think anyone should completely disregard an album. I think albums are still a very strong point. It shows you can tell a story with it. You can do so much with an album. It's just a different kind of project. And I don't have anything against anyone that says, I don't want to do an album. I don't think the music industry will ever reach a point where albums will be completely disregarded, basically. Singles are very important because kind of like you can just dedicate your full energy to that. But I think the whole organic thing, etc., you could still be really organic with it as well, because you can be working on it for 2 years and just be putting together songs as they come and then putting it together with a concept in mind. It works differently to a single, because a single you just get that and that's it. With an album you have a whole concept, and it's a different process. It also changes up like your approach to it, it keeps things challenging, personally.
That's interesting. I never really thought about it before today, honestly, because I buy very few albums. When I think about it, I buy the big albums. Like, I can't even think of, the last album, Guns N' Roses, Metallica. I've bought some of their whole albums. Prince, definitely. Eminem, I've bought entire albums, but I don't always buy the entire album. So it's an interesting consideration as far as the industry. You're probably right. I think that I know that everybody's super excited for scarypoolparty's album, but they're still going to buy everything that comes out in between too. So it's just, I don't think it's going to change his fans at all. I think they would buy whatever is out. But so I do want to get back to, I work at a college. I do a radio show at a college. So I work for a college. I do a radio show for a college radio station, and we have a lot of new musicians here. And last week I asked you this, but I couldn't really hear you. But I wanted to know if you had to give a student or somebody that's growing up into music and thinking, hey, this is what I want to do with my life, is there any advice you would give to them regarding the industry, regarding developing your music style, regarding any of that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I've learned along the way is you just have to put out music. That's the first step. You just need to understand who you are. Self-awareness is key, especially when you're creative. You need to know who you are, what your sound is. You need to be super honest with your craft, and you need to just put out music, because there's so many platforms platforms nowadays where you can just put out your music and just share it to the world and just get feedback. You also need to have tough skin. Not everyone has it, but you can build that up with putting music out there, because the internet's going to tear you apart. No matter how good you are, people are always going to find a way to hate. That helps build character. That helps build who you are. It also helps shift certain things in your craft. But the reason why I said self-awareness is key is because if you're not sure who you are when you start getting into the music industry, you're going to start hearing people telling you, oh, you should do this, or oh, you should do that. And then if you start molding yourself based on other people's opinion of your own craft, and I think especially with music, it's a reflection of self. If you start basing it on other people's opinions, 5 years down the line, you're not going to be sure who you are anymore. My only advice is, in the beginning, just know who you are. Be as vulnerable as you can be. Be super honest and just put out music. You know, shoot music videos, put out music, go to clubs, meet people, just share your passion with other people. Find a circle of friends that have the same goals as you. If you're a musician, try find someone that has the same passion for graphic design. Find someone that has the same passion for law, you know, and then build a team before you go into the industry. Because a lot of people as well, they think, oh, if I sign a record deal, I'm sorted. If you can go into a label and have all that stuff ready for you and say, okay, what can you offer me? I've already got my own lawyer, I've already got my own DJ, I've already got my own producer, I've already got my own graphic designer. What could you offer me? You know, so I think if you do all those steps, I think you're set for greatness, you know, and just never give up, basically.
That's amazing advice. I really love that advice. I actually got chills while you were talking about that. Do you have any comments, Tim?
I was going to say that's great advice. It's applicable to people that aren't musicians like myself. I'm a fine artist, and it's nice to have a portfolio together before you approach a studio and ask them to show you work.
So recently, I saw a post, I think Katie put it up actually, Katie Settacase put it up, that you just reached 1 million streams. How did that feel for you?
That was amazing. That was another stepping stone. It felt amazing because you kind of like visualize certain goals and certain targets in your head for so long. When it first happened, it didn't feel amazing because I kind of lived it in my head for so long. But as I like sat on the whole idea of hitting 1 million streams, it was like, wow, you know, like a couple of years ago I was getting gassed out by 1,000 plays or 2,000 plays, and now it's like 1 million a year later. So it felt incredible.
Well, congratulations on that. I know that it takes a lot of hard work to get into this industry these days.
Yeah.
So
I get 6 likes on a Facebook post, and I'm high all day long.
I know, right? We had one member in our group that just wanted to reach 100 likes. Like, she just was so thrilled that she got 100 likes on her post. That was fun. So I did want to ask, like, out of your entire library, which is very extensive, by the way, which I didn't realize quite was so extensive as it is, what is your favorite song that you've ever written?
I would say probably the song Wait For Me, which is a song I wrote for my mom. It was a song I think I'm most vulnerable on and really honest. It explains a lot of stuff that happened to me as a kid growing up, and it's dedicated to my mom, so that's special. And I think that was my favorite song. I got everything off my chest, and I made my mom proud of that song, so I think that's probably my favorite song.
That's amazing. I'm playing that today in the show, so that'll be awesome to be able to tell people about that. That's great.
Oh, that's a beautiful song. Is that your mother in the video, Chris?
It is, yeah. It is my mom.
Beautiful woman. That song is something special.
Thank you. Yeah, she is. Yeah, I put the video together for Mother's Day, and I sent it to her.
That's amazing. I love that. Being a mom, I really love that.
I respect all mothers out there. It's a super hard job.
I agree. It is a very difficult job, especially when you are challenged with a child that is artistic and wants to go alternative route. You know, because I have that. I'm very logical, but my son is very artistic, and he does movies and he does all this stuff. And at first I was like, but you have to go to school, and he's just not that guy. But he's very talented. So it's difficult when you're trying to like weigh happiness, right? Do you want your children to be happy and pursue their dreams, or do you want them to be successful? But success is defined by the person. So I finally came to that conclusion. I've always supported him, but in the back of my mind I was like, well, you know, what if the artist thing doesn't work out?
Absolutely, but you need to let him find that answer on his own. And I think happiness is figurative. I think happiness comes from you, and I don't think like people base success on money or on careers and all that kind of stuff. Happiness comes from doing what you love, I think, at the end of the day. So if it doesn't work out, at least they found out on their own, because I think for me, the thing that I'm most fearful of in the world is regret. So I think obviously it's natural. You're a mother, so it's obviously hard to like be in your shoes because I'm not a mom, but I could understand from like a child's perspective where my mom lets me do what I want to do, and I kind of found my own path in it. So I think if there's any answer or any advice I could give, it would be let him find the answer on his own.
I agree. I had to let go and let him do that because, for one thing, the world needs more artists, in my opinion. It needs more beauty. And if he can create some of that, I'm all about it. But as a mom, I do worry about him living, right? Like making a living and supporting family and things like that. But I agree with you. I couldn't agree more. I think it's a pivotal question in life. Choosing art or choosing money, I think is a very big thing. And I think you have to decide what you want to choose in life. And money, as much as money pays your bills and it does these things, it does not make you happy in the long run. In the long run, it's family and things like that.
Yeah, I think money should never be your first option. You should never pick something just because it's money. Because money comes, money goes. And if you choose something because you're making good money, then you're always going to be greedy for more money. If you choose something that you love, the money will come. It might take longer, but the longevity of that will be way stronger.
Agreed. The other question I wanted to ask you is, what is your favorite song by another artist and why?
Okay, so this is a really hard question. It depends. It depends on my mood. It always changes throughout the years. But I could tell you my favorite song at the moment, and that's "Good Things Fall Apart" by John Belly. That's probably a song I've broken the replay button in the past few months.
Why? Is there a particular reason you just love it for the songwriting and the music?
I love John Belly. First of all, I think he's an incredible artist, songwriter. And I don't know, the first time I heard that song, I had goosebumps the whole way through. Just the songwriting, the way it was put together, the structure, the dynamics of the song, sonics, everything was just, I don't know, it was 14 on 10 for me. I couldn't believe how perfect that song is. So probably that's why I connected to it so much.
Yeah, I was just typing in that song into Google. John, how do you pronounce the last name?
Bellion. Bellion, I believe, or maybe one L. I think it's double L.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it. I've got it marked down now. I'm gonna look it up and listen to it afterwards.
It's incredible.
So we did get a lot of fan questions. We announced early, like usually we don't announce early who's coming on the podcast, but everybody was super excited about you. And of course they had a ton of questions about Alejandro. We got a lot of fan questions. It was the first time that has ever happened. That people were like, oh, ask this, ask that. We try to pare it down. We do have like limits on where we go with these interviews about him just because he's so fiercely private about his past and about his family, and we don't want to really go into that area. But a lot of people were wondering how you met him, like how you came to record Thinking of You with Alejandro.
Okay, so it's a weird situation. So basically, I was in LA. I think it was 2017, and we went to see the Hollywood sign, basically, and it was pretty late. It was like sunset, so we saw sunset, and then a mutual friend of ours, who was his producer at the time, I believe, basically called up my manager and was like, oh, we're on the other side of the Hollywood sign, you should join us, we're going for a hike. So we got an Uber to meet them, and we said, okay, let's go up this massive hill. And we started climbing, and everyone kind of started speaking to each other, and it was Alejandro and myself at the back of the crowd just talking, about life and getting to know each other. It was pitch black, we couldn't see each other. I didn't know about mountain lions. If I knew about them, I wouldn't have gone up the hill, but we're climbing in this weird mountain, and like it was actually my first time in America. So I was like, I'm not used to any of this stuff. So I'm like walking up this mountain and talking to Alejandro, who I didn't obviously know until that moment, and we just hit it off. Like we just connected musically, spiritually, and just talked for a good like half an hour. As we reached the top of the mountain, that's when like there was a bit of light. We kind of like chopped it up a bit more, spoke to everyone else, and slowly made our way down. So we spoke for a good like 2 hours, walking up, and then while we're up there and then walking down, and we said, let's keep in touch. So everyone kind of went their separate ways. We got each other's number, and that was basically it, because I was leaving like 2 days after that hike. So I didn't meet him again that trip, but we stayed in contact and we stayed like talking. And while I was when I went back to the UK, we used to speak pretty much every day. And we said, let's make a song. And then one day the song Thinking of You was actually a dream. In my dream, I actually dreamt about the song, like the idea, and like some of the sonics in there were actually in my dream, which makes it even more special. And I woke up, started making this song straight away, and I was like, this needs an extra touch. So I sent him the song. I said, do you want to put some vocals on there, or do you want to add some instruments? And sent it to him. He was like, straight away, cool, I really love this, let me try something. And within a couple hours, he kind of sent me back some melodies and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, I'm not sure about the vocals. I'm like, bro, send me the vocals. So he sent me these vocals, and they were the vocals that you heard. It was one take, and I was blown away. I'm like, this is the record. It's coming out, you know? So we're super excited about that. We mixed it, and within a week, it was already out. So that's basically how the song came together.
So Chris, when you first talked to him, had you heard him play the piano or the guitar or sing?
Nothing. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know how amazing or talented this guy is. I just started speaking to him. He sounded like a really down-to-earth guy, really cool guy, and we just connected. Everything, we had the same beliefs, everything was just, we connected, you know? So I had no idea who this guy was. I didn't know I was like stood next to greatness, you know? But I'm really glad that happened. And it happened for a reason, because, you know, the whole hike thing, and I don't know, I just feel it was meant to be.
That's an amazing story. That was not what I expected, but that's an amazing story. Wow. Apparently he's just I think it's awesome that you dreamt about the song. That gave me goosebumps. I don't know why, but it did. So you've known him since 2017, so about 2 years now.
Yeah.
And are you guys going to record again? Is there anything on the horizon as far as a collaboration with you two?
We haven't talked about doing another record in a while. It's been since he's been on the show, etc. It's been a bit hard to keep in contact with him, which is understandable. I'm super happy for him. So hopefully, we do make a couple more records together. But at the moment, we don't have anything planned or anything in the works.
Well, I hope you do. I love that song, except for the curse word. But I actually do like the curse word, just not on the radio. It's a great song. I do love it. I was impressed. I'm not a huge hip hop person. There are very few exceptions for me. I like Eminem, and I hear a lot of that, influence in what you do. I loved some of your music that I listened to last night. So it's different for me to actually say I like hip hop, right? Because it's not usually my thing, but that's what music is about, kind of crossing those boundaries, right? Discovering new things.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, you did that for me. I know Jim listened to, probably your entire library yesterday. Yeah.
I did. I got pretty caught up in it, thinking of you, Wait For Me, those I'd heard, but you got some great songs in there. I love that quote by Richard Hitchens in the beginning of Lord.
Oh, yeah.
He was quite a thinker. I had to listen to California. I don't need to trip to feel like I'm on vacation. It's a great line. Goofy,
Thank you.
Going Back to the Vault, 2015.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Love the video on that, too. So simple. Just the profile of you singing. It was very well done. Yeah, no, I'm a fan. I made a long list of songs that really hit. I'm going to put them on loop here for a while.
Thank you so much.
So you guys weren't in the same room when you recorded the song? I find that fascinating.
No, we weren't actually. So we were just chopping it up over the internet. So I sent him the record, and then he sent me the vocals back. Unfortunately, we weren't in the same room. So we haven't actually been in the same room making music. We just met that one time, and then became really close friends, and we did it over the internet. So I was in England when he sent over the vocals and the melody.
That's amazing. You would never know that you weren't in the same place. You would never know that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know that as a layman. I'm not a musically inclined person on any level, but I would never know that you weren't in the same place. So another fan question we got, and they actually wanted to know 10 things, but I took the 10 things out of there. But another fan question that we got was, what are things about Alejandro that nobody would guess? That doesn't include the family or growing up or anything like that.
It's hard to because everything that he kind of wanted out there, he put out there, I think, on the show, and I think in some interviews and all that kind of stuff. He's very, from what I learned and from when we started speaking to each other, he's very reserved with a lot of things that he's gone through or anything about him. So I probably know as much as most people do, because when we spoke about obviously like stuff that we believe in and music and just talk for hours. If I were to say one thing, it would probably be something that people probably could put together, but he was always, at least when we spoke that one time, he spoke about how he doesn't think his lyrics are strong enough, or how he struggles with lyrics, which obviously I haven't heard his music when we first started speaking about this. And then when I started hearing his music, I was like, dude, your lyrics are incredible. Like the emotion you put in there. And so I think it would be like how humble he is, how he doesn't see his greatness, which I think is part of his greatness, But I don't think I know more than most people.
I do agree. I think that it's always astounded me, and I've said this over and over on the podcast, that it astounds me that he doesn't know how good he is. And I think that that's the mark of an artist, right? I think artists are very much perfectionist, and they can find fault. I'm a photographer, so I can tell you I find fault with every picture I do. With every picture I take, I can find fault with it. And I can actually edit myself into this phase that is just beyond not good, because I'm so critical of everything I do as far as photography, right? So I think he kind of falls into that place where he is such a perfectionist, he's such an artist, that he kind of maybe looks past the talent that he has because he wants to achieve this level that he considers to be great, maybe.
Yeah, probably that's, like you said, we can all relate to it on some degree. But I think he's so talented that it's blows my mind that he can't see that, how good he is, But I'm super grateful that he puts out music and he can share that with the world, Which because I know a lot of artists that are amazing and they just don't put out any music. So at least, even though it's super critical and it's super good, kind of perfect certain things, I think I'm super grateful that he puts out music regardless of that.
Oh, I know. I spend my life trying to make sure that people know about him. Trust me. I think that he is beyond talented. Are you going to go to any of his shows? I know he's doing 2 shows in London.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be at the shows in London. For sure.
I'm going to New York in 6 days, and I'm going to New York and Philly, but I am beyond excited to see him. It's the first time. Jim's been every other week, but this is the first time for me that I'm seeing him in concert. So
that's amazing. I'm excited for you.
Yeah. So are you you're going to be at both of the shows in London, you said?
So I plan to be at one of them for sure. But we'll see. I've been in contact with his management and might be down for both. We'll see. I'm definitely there for one of them.
Well, I don't know if you're aware, but there was a fan movement on the part of the Facebook groups, which I was involved with, but I didn't really have any. I signed it, or Jim signed my name or something, but there was a whole fan movement to write his management and have you perform for him, with him, not for him, with him. Did you know about that?
Yeah, I was informed. That was incredible.
You sent it to his management, right, Jim?
We sent it to about 3 people in his management team, and it just made sense to us, especially since there's a collaboration a couple of years ago that we'd have a reunion there. Maybe next time. He's got Violet Skies and Toby Johnson opening for him up there, and just a few days after we sent off that letter, it was announced that they had their opening acts lined up. Are you familiar with either Violet Skies or Toby Johnson, Chris?
No, I'm not, but I did know that he had some acts already lined up for the show for a while, so I think they were just waiting closer to the date to announce who's performing, but I don't know who those acts are.
Yeah, that was my suspicion as well. Well, Violet Skies, female vocalist, alternative, and Toby Johnson's another singer-songwriter who prefers his guitar, so that'll be easy. That'll be interesting.
So I have a question for you, Chris, regarding that. How often are the opening act determined by the label or the management company?
It really depends. I think it varies every single time. So if you're signed to a major label, you're most likely going to have people that are signed to the same management or the same label or the same booking agent, because sometimes you might be signed to a label but a separate booking agent. So it's every situation different. Are you asking in regards for artists looking to go on tour, or is it just overall question?
It was a question when it came to him. I wasn't sure how his opening acts were chosen. I mean, his opening acts were great. They really were. Morgan is amazing. Morgan opened for him in about 6 or 7 of the shows here. And then Sucra, who's married to his drummer, DK the drummer, they're opening for him in about 15 of the shows. And then Twin Shadows opening for a couple of his shows. I was just curious about how that all came about. If he had oversight into who opens for him. I mean, obviously he did when it came to DK's wife and Twin Shadow, because Twin Shadow is kind of his musical mentor. I was just curious if the other acts were people that he was familiar with or that the record label chose for him. So I wasn't sure how that worked.
I think it varies. So, like, I think he's signed to Live Nation, which is a booking agent. So it varies. Sometimes they might have people already like sign up for the show, or the management would have some people come on the show and do the opening act. It always varies. Sometimes he can suggest it, and they can bring them on. Sometimes artists can even email the management and say, "Listen, you need an opening act for this and this." And if they do have any empty slots, the management can like have a meeting and then just discuss numbers, discuss all that kind of stuff. So I think every situation is different. Sometimes you can have different artists on different shows accordingly, because you can have someone opening up because they're in that city, or someone can actually be on tour with you doing various shows.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for explaining that. It is an interesting learning curve doing the podcast and the radio show, because we've talked to like a lot of industry people. Not a lot, but we've talked to a couple of industry people at least. And it's always interesting to hear that side of it, because to the outside world, we're just buying music. But there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that I don't know that I necessarily knew before.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I mean, from Corey Jacobs, who's a producer in LA. He was saying that, the music industry can be kind of corrupt, and it's not always the fairy tale that artists imagine it to be. So
no, absolutely, it's definitely not a fairy tale. But that's why, going back on my original point when you asked me about advice, is going in the industry with your people. So the more people you have around you that you knew before you blew up helps you keep sane and keeps a lot of control over your creativity and all that kind of stuff. So the industry can be very, very competitive, can be a very dark place, but only if you let it kind of affect you in that way.
Right.
You need to prepare yourself, basically.
And maybe that's one of the struggles that Alejandro had, is he rose so fast being on the TV show that by the time he was signing contracts, he had connections in the music industry, but he didn't have his people around him. He didn't have that support system, and he went in and kind of had to face all that alone, it seems to me, and we know he struggled with it. I think there was a huge adjustment over this summer, dealing with the demands that were suddenly put on him, and concert tours that were lined up, and having to prepare for that, and I just think he really suffered under the weight of that, and I think we saw some of that on his IG, where he wanted to let his frustrations out, he wanted to let the fans know, but it was a little confusing. Sometimes he wasn't always clear who it was he was talking about. Presumably he didn't want to call the music industry out, throw him under the bus on IG, but he did get those frustrations out there, and we saw that he was just overloaded.
No, I definitely agree with that, and I've known people that have been in the industry for a long time, and they still deal with that pressure, so I could only imagine what that kind of like boost did to him, because it was in the spur of a few months, that he went from what he was to what he is. And I think naturally anyone, we're human, we have feelings, we go through different emotions, going from one lifestyle to another in like a few months. I could only imagine what kind of strain that had on him.
So in the fall tour, as opposed to the summer tour, by the end of the summer tour, he just seemed tired to me. Like, he seemed like he was just stressed out. And he did talk about, he has a fear of flying. So he talked about that a little bit. And I think it just took a toll on him. But the fall tour, he seems totally different. He has his people around him. He seems happy. The music is incredible. He is always incredible. I think his band, though, is incredible as well. They are killing it at the shows. Nobody that I've talked to has walked out of his shows and been like, it was okay. They're all like, that was amazing. It changed my life. It was beyond good. So he does seem better adjusted this fall. Do you agree with that, Jim? That he seems like he's happier this tour than he did the last one?
Well, he doesn't have to fly, does he? He's got his tour bus now.
He got his tour bus, which is good for him. I'm happy that he's not flying.
Absolutely. You know, the last stop on the summer tour was Pomona, his hometown, the 17th, 18th of July. And the first night, he struggled. It seems like kind of everything came to a head, and all of his frustrations and all of the pressure kind of mounted, and he struggled through that. He came out the next night, and looked like he kind of got a handle on it. But we know even in the months after that, before the fall tour, that he really was struggling with his new life, the industry, the pressures. By the time he hit Lollapalooza, I think he got to get up there on stage and jump around and just release that energy in his performance. And I think that broke something for him, and he found his place on stage. Because let's remember, just a year ago, he was touring with Twin Shadow, and he was in the background playing the keyboards and the bass and percussion, and he seemed to be perfectly happy there. And he said himself that he just didn't see himself or feel as comfortable being the front man or being out there on stage alone. And I think now he's finally finding his footing.
I agree. I think he's embracing. He seems a lot more confident now than he did. So, Chris, do you have any tours coming up? Do you have anything exciting going on that you want to let the fans know about so they can kind of follow you and keep in contact?
Yeah, so I'm actually planning a lot of shows next year. So I'll be announcing that once any of the venues get confirmed and any of the dates get confirmed. I'll obviously be promoting that. But definitely next year I'd like to do some shows. I'm not sure about the States yet, but there'll definitely be some shows in Europe, and then I'll look into doing some shows in the States. Aside from all the music that's coming out, I've got loads of songs coming out. I've got a fashion brand I'm working on, which is called Island Boy Clothing. So I'm also going to be creating that as well, like finding a new channel to express myself creatively.
Well, definitely keep us in the loop so we can follow that and come to New York so I can see you. I'd love to see you in concert.
For sure. I'll let you know as soon as anything is booked, for sure.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And we'll definitely put it out on our channels. I know Jim has a group and I have, well, at the moment, 2 groups. We'll definitely get that out there and on the radio show and everything else. So just please let us know. Be very,
Thank you so much.
very excited. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the Scary Fan Party. I'm Sarah, and I want to say goodbye to my co-host, Jim.
Bye, Sarah.
Bye. Have a great day. And Chris, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you and find out, about your music and your career, and of course the connection to Alejandro, because this is an Alejandro podcast, but we really enjoyed hearing about your career as well and kind of how that's shaping up for you. I really hope you make it to the States for a tour. I'll absolutely be in line to see that, speaking for myself, if you come to New York. And, just thank you for showing up and doing this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. And honestly, I do appreciate all the support. I know I don't mention it enough, but it really does mean the world to me. And I'm super grateful for you guys. And thank you so much for having me.
Okay, everybody. Have a great day and do some good in the world. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I'm Jim.
And I'm Sarah.
Tune in 2 weeks for another podcast. Take care, guys.
It's all love. Bye.